Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to the Growing Band Director podcast. My name is Kyle Smith, and joining me is my friend and colleague Jeff Smith. Our mission is to share practical advice and explore topics that will help every band director, no matter your experience level, as well as music education students who are working to join us in the coming years. Together, we will discuss many aspects of a well-rounded band program, but most importantly, we will discuss concepts that help us all improve our own programs each and every day. Always remember the famous quote by Ray Kroc, "When you're green, you're growing, and when you're right, you rot." Let's get started. Okay, welcome back to part 2 with John Mastroianni and Jeff Smith. This is all about beginning improvisation. In part 1, we talked about some of the keys to getting kids started as a teacher and as a student. Working on playing by ear, being creative from the very beginning, and tapping into their humanity and their soul, fear of improvisation and how we can overcome that, and then some of the steps to being a great jazz musician. So in part 2, we're going to get into some more details. So John, let's take it away.
Yeah. So you alluded to what form might I start with? And of course, I evaded your question and by going into just forgetting all that and just started with all the creative aspects of trying to play and just improvise on a few notes. Invariably, I get questioned about the blues scale and about a blues form. So I'm not in any way making it sound like I'm a blues scale hater or something like that. But if I had a nickel for every festival I went to where I just listened to 10 bands play and it's the only thing I heard, the whole day. And I know it's an easy thing to start with, and it's not like I'm totally against it. But in fact, even on that sheet that I gave you that everybody could find on YouTube and in the folder, and I did write a blues scale at the bottom of the page, and I wrote some very simple blues riffs that people can play. And the nice thing about that is that it gives the students some experience with like some non-harmonic tones and some of the blues notes and why they work. Oh, great. Okay, you're going to pull it up again. So, the previous page. Yeah, there we go, right at the bottom. So, so you could see some very basic blues riffs there that I might use as call and response with the students. So now you're kind of trying to teach them that, there's some notes that are not necessarily maybe in the chord or the scale, but they sound really good because they're blues oriented. And of course, you have to explain the blues to students. And I usually talk about it in two ways. I talk about it as being a 12-bar form, but I also talk about it as them expressing the melancholy aspects of slavery and where it came from and this, that, the other thing, like the literal and the kind of the connotation of the blues. And of course, I might ask them, hey, if someone says you have the blues, what does it mean? And then usually they'll say, oh, it kind of means that we're really sad. I'm like, yeah, that's about the size of it, because when people sang the blues, they made it really, really easy. It was normally about something really sad, especially back in the day when in the evolution of this music. So there's nothing wrong with grabbing a blues scale, playing a couple riffs and all that. And we do know that, as I said earlier, the blues is one of the first and most basic forms of jazz. Okay, here is a good thing about the blues scale. Without even telling everyone what the form is and what all the specific chords, you could put those few notes in front of them and say, go ahead, close your eyes and just play. Let the rhythm section go, and maybe you might use a play along track or your rhythm section in school. And now you are going to get into some time. And remember, some of the things I did earlier in part 1, I wasn't really thinking about time, but now you want to, of course, get some good time going and get some good swing feel going. And I have a saying, and I think most people would agree with me, that nothing means anything unless you play it in good time. You could be playing the greatest jazz licks in the world. They don't mean a thing unless you're playing good time. So by playing some of those easy blues riffs and stuff that I have written down there, that'll at least give some ideas. And then you can let the student go. So that's one good thing, I think, about playing a blues and about playing a blues form and a blues scale. I mentioned a couple tunes earlier. So let's say I was going to teach very beginners a tune by ear. Probably the first tune I would teach them would be C-Jam Blues for obvious reasons. And then most of them would say, are you serious? It's only got 2 notes in it? And being like, yeah, That's it. That's the whole tune. So you could go from there. And then I mentioned Sunny Moon. You mentioned Blues Walk. That's a little more involved, but as
Freddie
they
Freeloader.
yeah, Freddie the Freeloader, all that kind of stuff. As they get older, you can get more involved in the tunes and that kind of thing. But I think those are really good tunes to start with, and there are good charts available. Like
Mhm.
I've heard some at the elementary level, and that's not my area of expertise certainly, but you could find some good music they've got some nice little ensemble things to play, but most importantly, they're a good vehicle for improvisation for the kids, and you can open it up and let a bunch of people play and all that, and then really let them experience what the jazz idiom is like. Like, yeah, okay, we can play this, but look, it's open. That means we're just going to keep playing this round and round. I'm going to point to Kyle, then I'm going to point to John, then I'm going to talk to Jeff, and then Susie, and then blah, blah, blah. And you just keep going around the room and letting people play, and it really gives them the essence of what this music is all about.
Three of the Rangers who have a lot of great charts at the very beginning level of the tunes like this. One is Paul Murtha. Paul Murtha has a lot of charts. Rick Stitzel has a lot of great charts, and Michael Sweeney, of course, has a lot of great. If people are looking for Rangers, those are kind of the ones that I go to. Can I give you a list of the type of tunes that I do in improv classes, and tell me if you think they belong in this category, or if there's other categories I should add as well? I have four basic categories of types of tunes. Now I try to teach historical tunes, and I try to go with what is the form of the tune more than the melody, right? So it has to fit that with the improvisation. So major blues, and on the other side of that, minor blues. So with minor blues, the 1 chord and the 4 chord is major. Is minor, but then the 5 chord is major. There is also a flat 6 chord, so the third line's a little bit different, but it's basically very similar. And then I do modal tunes, so what, and impressions and other tunes that are basically 1 or 2 or 3 chords that just kind of, it gives you the space to play on, right? These modal tunes. And then the last type I would do would be rhythm changes, which is AABA based on I Got Rhythm. So what do you think of those? Like, am I on the right track?
Sure, definitely on the right track. Now, I'll start from the back end and work my way backwards. So rhythm changes, obviously, they're difficult to play on, right? I mean, if you're going to really play all the chords, because rhythm changes essentially has a couple chords per bar until you get to the bridge, and I mean there are certain variations of that. But
what if we started at the basic version, like Jumping at the Woodside? If you just played A section as B flat major 6,
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Right. I mean, look, you could improvise on rhythm changes just by playing a pentatonic scale, right? Until you get to the bridge. So yes, that works perfectly fine.
And for people who don't know, the bridge is a major 3 chord, a major 6, a major 2, and a major 5. So that's like where the rubber hits the road on that one.
Right. So, in the jazz vernacular, we would say, the bridge is 3, 6, 2, 5, and everyone knows what that means. So yes. And Kyle, I am so happy that you said modal tunes, because that was going to be my next go-to after the blues. So if I had 2 forms, let's say I had to narrow it down to 2, and you can play a lot of repertoire like with these 2 forms, but it would be blues, and it would be tunes that are modal in nature, have just maybe a couple different chords to them, even if it has, starts out with just C minor and then goes to F minor and then goes or whatever it is, but just something really easy in that regard to kind of improvise on. And also, I like tunes, and of course, modal tunes usually are anyway, but in minor keys, because you really can't play a wrong note. And what I mean by that is if you play on like for instance, a major 7th chord, it can sound really bad if you're playing the root and the 4th and some notes and all that. And I've totally decided now, after all these years of teaching jazz, that I'll never tell a student to hold out the root or the 4th on a major 7th again, because the more I tell them not to do it, they do it. So I just shut my mouth and, let them use their ears. But seriously, on a minor chord or like a modal kind of tune, you can't get in trouble. All the notes that you play they can play are perfectly fine. So if you write out that scale on the board for them and they're doing their thing, you are going to have successful improvisers. They can't really get themselves in too much hot water.
I'd like to dig into a little bit more of the modal tune thing if we can.
Sure.
because I'm on a constant search for more modal tunes. So,
Yeah.
okay, so Little Sunflower, Freddie Hubbard is a great one,
Yep.
right?
Hmm.
So What, great Miles Davis. So my issue with Impressions, which was John Coltrane's tune on that, is that it's so darn fast, right?
Right. It doesn't have to be that fast, but I already know what you're going to say, but go ahead.
So I other tunes that are off the top of your head that I can add to my list.
The other issue with that too, with Impressions, is it goes up a half a step E flat minor, which is not the easiest key sometimes for the students to manipulate, right? But even tunes like simple tunes, for instance, that are not necessarily modal, like Song for My Father, the work song is a great bluesy little tune by Nat and Cannonball Adderley.
Mm-hmm.
Those are great tunes. Watermelon Man by Herbie Hancock is not a modal tune, but it's a very simple tune with just like one chord for 5 4 5. So those are three tunes right there that are really really excellent, and I find that they work famously well. Cantaloupe Island, another great. You're playing on an F minor chord forever until it finally goes to the D flat and it's a D minor too. But in any event, those are really, really, really good tunes to start with kids. You can generally get them going on tunes like that. And I think they're also, Kyle, you made such a great point in teaching the history, because anytime I was going to teach, I already said I would make them learn the melodies by ear, but you play the historical recording for them. You play Herbie Hancock's version, you play whatever, Cannonball Adderley's version, et cetera, et cetera. So they're not only are they hearing a tune, but they're learning the history and they're learning the way it was originally played. So I think those are really crucial points, and good for you for doing it that way. It's an excellent way to do it.
So important, right? Jeff, you were telling me, was it Arturo that you saw recently in Portsmouth, or was that Herbie Hancock? I just forget who it was.
Arturo, I saw it at Jimmy's place in Portsmouth.
Arturo.
Wow, cool.
Yeah. I have another question along this route. John, I don't know if I'm wrong. I don't know where I heard this, but I've done it with kids forever and it seems to work. And I don't know if I'm right or not, but I want to run it by you as one of my jazz authorities. When you've got D minor for like 900 bars, you have a kid like playing D minor over and over and over again. I've always had them take a different chord tone and make that the root of the chord. So in place of D minor, have them play F major 7, or have them play A minor 7, or have them play C major 7.
Yeah. Yeah. So remember what I did earlier in part 1 about being creative. So I would definitely do this. So one of the things I might do is to clunk out a D minor chord on the piano. And then after they can get comfortable with the scale, then, all right, now jumble up the notes in different ways. Make them sound different. If it can come from them, it's all the better. So what if can they get used to not starting on the root? Can they get used to playing the B natural, which is right like a demon note for a lot of people on D minor, even older people, and it's a beautiful note, the 6th or the 13th, if you will. So if they can get accustomed right away to just get out of your comfort zone, and that's one of the things that is really, really important. I always tell students that a good jazz solo is a series of miraculous recoveries. You're playing all this stuff, and my teacher used to tell me, if you're not messing up, you're not trying hard enough. So if you're not tangling yourself up, and this was in college, in undergrad school, he'd tell me, if you're not tangling yourself up, then you're not trying hard enough. You want to tangle yourself up. You want to experiment. You want to explore. You want to get out of the box, get out of what makes you feel comfortable. Don't play the same licks that you can play all the time. So yes, that's a beautiful thing that you're doing to teach them that they don't necessarily have to start on a D all the time, and et cetera, et cetera.
And so I was thinking more about the piano players who are comping, right? That they can, I would even go like, okay, 4 bars of D minor, 4 bars of F major 7, 4 bars of A minor, 4 bars of C, just to get them to move around a lot.
Right.
When I was a younger teacher, one of my really good friends, director of jazz studies at University of Southern Maine, is named Chris Oberholzer.
Oh, yeah, I know Chris.
He came in and worked with my kids, and he heard that all my kids were playing the natural minor scale, right? The flat 3, the flat 6, and the flat 7. And afterwards, he's like, you should teach them the Dorian minor scale because that's cooler. So for people who are out there, I don't know, John, if you agree with him or disagree, but that's just the major scale starting on 2. So it has the major 6 that you were alluding to earlier.
Right. I think maybe this came up in our first podcast a few weeks ago, and I was talking how I've gone full circle as a jazz educator with I never use the term Dorian or Mixolydian or any of that anymore. You know how I teach a Mixolydian scale is a major scale with a flat 7. That's all you do, and I call it a dominant 7th chord scale because that's what it goes with, right? A minor 7th chord, how do you make a minor 7th chord? Well, you lower the 3rd and you lower the 7th, right? Root, lowered 3rd, 5th, lowered 7th. If you lower the 3rd and the 7th in a scale, then you get a minor 7th chord scale. Yes, it is Dorian, and yes, it does start on the 2nd note of a major scale. But you see, by the time I do all that, I was like, all right, we'll take I-91 north and then get on to this and go there. And it's already so much has gone by. I like
what's different about that is if they're in concert band class and you've taught them D minor in the traditional sense, now it's a different sound.
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. So that's why I think it's even a little bit, well, if you say D Dorian, of course, it sounds different than D minor. So that's an advantage, certainly, in using the term Dorian. But yeah, you have to discern between the two. And yes, there is always confusion about those two. Always.
So if we can go back to rhythm changes for a second, what are some good tunes we can be using for rhythm changes? I only have a couple that I've used. Jumping at the Woodside is the most obvious that I've used. I haven't used I Got Rhythm, even though I probably should have.
No doubt. Yeah.
And there's another tune by Charlie Parker that people think is really complicated, but it's not. Red Cross.
Sure, Red Cross is a great tune.
I've used that as well. So what are some other rhythm changes tunes?
Yep, and you can do Lester. Oh God, this is
Lester Leaps In.
What is it? What is this? Right, that's Lester Leaps In, right?
And there's some great transcriptions out there too.
Yeah, so that's a really nice tune. Oleo might be a little too complicated, but the good thing about Oleo is it's rhythmic. It's not like it doesn't have a million notes in it. It's more rhythmic than it is like note. So that might be an okay tune. And again, as you're moving up to levels and all that, but those are good. I Got Rhythm. I would definitely, because that's a pretty easy melody, right? So it's a little bit.
There's another Clark Terry, another tune that Clark taught us by ear. I remember just sitting in the room with Clark Terry and having him teach you a tune by ear. It's like,
I love it.
So it's a tune. It was a Miles tune, I think, called "I Don't Want to Be Kissed by Anyone But You."
Oh, okay.
And, it was like kind of rhythm changes, but kind of not rhythm changes. And
right. Well, even Perdido is kind of that's right. And that's an easy melody too, to play. So that's another one. So
I'm taking notes for my jazz teaching.
Oh yeah. So there are all kinds of variations on the theme, So yeah.
And so, mentioning Perdido, you talked in our last episode, well, a month ago or so, about the Charleston rhythm, right?
Oh yes.
Clark always taught Perdido in that Charleston rhythm. Perdido, Perdido, Perdido. Yeah.
Yep. Very, very important, and especially for rhythm section players, but for everybody too. It's a good comping rhythm.
All right, let's do. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Say one more quick thing. It's a great exercise to have the students try to write their own tunes on these forms. Like, okay, let's write an I Got Rhythm tune that only incorporates the 5 notes of the pentatonic scale. And, if they've listened to a couple of these tunes and how sequential they are and how kind of thematic they are, if you will, in the motivic development, then they might have a shot. And really, what's improvisation? It's spontaneous composition. So if you sit down and have them, I make students write solos all the time, because, all right, write your solo, because then you can really take time to think. The chords aren't flying by the rhythm section. You're not chasing them, and you can really write something great. And then eventually, hopefully it'll come quicker to your fingers. So anyway, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's great. So now let's go to minor blues. I think minor blues is, by the way, if anybody wants a great beginning jazz chart on a minor blues tune, Terry White has a red cover on Mr. PC, which is money.
Right.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about some minor blues tunes. I actually did not write any down, so my mind is blanking. We got Mr. PC.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So minor blues. Let's see.
Equinox is a great tune.
Equinox is cool. See,
Revelation is in the Real Easy book too. That's a Kenny Barron tune. That's totally doable.
right, which
Revelation.
is more obscure, but it's really great.
I had never heard it, but then I played it with kids, and I'm like, this is a great little tune. Easy to play.
Yeah. Yep. And sometimes some of that stuff, like Kenny Barron, is amazing, right? Amazing pianist and composer and all that. And some tunes like that, where they're kind of hidden gems, you wouldn't think. Your brain automatically kind of goes to, all right, let me go to the American Songbook, let me see what I can think of, and that type of thing. But yeah, those are all really, really great tunes. Stolen Moments, Oliver Nelson tune, is not really a difficult melody. That's another one. It's and that has some different cool stuff in it. So those are nice. What's what is that? Oh, is that a West Montgomery tune or something? Not 4-on-6.
I don't know it.
Isn't it terrible when you can hum it and you can play it, but you don't know the title? I'll think of it when I'm not trying. But anyway, yeah, there's a minor. Oh wait, or no, it might be. Is it Nostalgia in Times Square? No, it's not Nostalgia.
No, that's Mingus.
All right, if I keep trying to think of it, I'm just going to go blank. So I'll let it clear the brain, and then hopefully I'll think of what it is. But anyway.
Okay. Great. So we've done a lot. My list is done. I don't know what else we want to talk about.
Well, I can't divulge where I get my hair done to anybody. That's top secret. Other than that, I'll give any other information. No, but yeah, no, this has been great. Everybody has their own thing. It's really, like you mentioned something earlier, and I do want to make this point, because you said, "Oh, I'm not sure if I'm right or not, or if this works." And I was going to stop you in the middle of your sentence, but of course I didn't want to be rude. But I was literally going to go, time out. If it's working for you and your students, and you found success with it, then it's right. So I never, ever profess to say that the way I think I should do something is the end-all way. And even to my students, I say, well, I practice it like this, but some people work better like this. Some people do that. The right way is whatever's best for you. I don't know, your students. I mean, I would know the students that I was standing in front of at that particular time and doing a workshop with, and I would hopefully be able to, like we all do, like all teachers do, right? We adjust, we punt in the middle of the lesson plan. Oh, well, that didn't work. I didn't get a first down. I got to try something else now. And, we're able to change course like that. And it's just part of what we do from having a lot of experience. So that's kind of the way it goes. But if you find a tried and true way, then do it. And here's, one last point. And Jeff, I think we were talking about this last time. Like, I was talking about marching band. Somehow we got into the conversation in our first thing. And I said, I didn't know squat about marching band. And all of a sudden I was presented with having to teach it. So what did I do? I went out and I seeked people out that were really great at marching band, like Jeff. I used to go watch his rehearsals, and I'd go watch people's rehearsals, and I'd figure it out. I'd learn what to do. Same applies here. Seek it. We can't know everything. In fact, best advice for a beginning teacher: you cannot go into your first year knowing everything. I'm going into how many years, right? 40 plus years, and I still don't know anything. I still seek people out, and I say, hey, how would you do this? So I think that's really an important point. So seek people out that are experts and let them help you, and let them tell you kind of what to do, and then you'll find your way around between your knowledge and theirs. You'll be all good.
I think that's a good place for us to stop. All right. What does Clark Terry say? Keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on. That's exactly right.
We sincerely appreciate you taking your valuable time and listening to the Growing Band Director podcast. Your students are very lucky to have a band director like you. If you have any suggestions for episode topics or think you have an area of expertise to share on a show with us, please reach out. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please give us a 5-star review and tell your band director friends to subscribe as well. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our YouTube channel, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening to The Growing Band Director. See you next week.